Hey guys, Steve here. You are listening to one of our original 26 episodes. If you've listened to any of our new episodes, you're going to notice that we're sounding a little different in these ones.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
There is.
They've been remastered.
They have been remastered.
Because they had a really annoying hum.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thanks to listener James for doing almost all of the legwork on this thing.
Yeah.
You'll also notice if you had listened to what we're calling the Lost 26 episodes before, and you're re-listening now, the music and sound effects are gone.
Yes, yeah. We've gone back to straight audio. So be warned, we sound a little different today than we do in what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
So, hi everyone. This is Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Devin.
I'm Steve.
I'm Joe.
And we're going to talk about a mystery.
Woo!
An unsolved mystery?
An unsolved mystery.
Oh, those guys. I like those kind of best.
Woo! I know. And it's actually my favorite kind of unsolved mystery, it turns out. I'm seeing a pattern in the unsolved mysteries I bring.
You like the ones where people die.
They're all cases where, like, apparently healthy middle-aged men die under weird circumstances.
That's really disconcerting.
So I don't know what that says about the future of your guys' lives.
I know when we run out of story ideas, you're going to have to mysteriously murder one of us.
It's going to be like, oh gosh, we have a perfect story because Joe disappeared the other day.
I know.
It's so weird.
He was found hung from a tree, but there was no rope. Yeah.
Well, how did that happen?
I know.
Okay. Anyways, we're going to talk about the lead mask case today. We're in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In 1966. It's August 17th, and two TV repairmen tell their relatives that they need to go buy supplies for work. And some accounts say that they also mention they want to buy a car for work. And they're close friends. They travel a lot together. They're always seen together. They had money for a vehicle maybe, but they definitely had money for the supplies with them. The men, who are Miguel, Jose, and Manuel, later stop at a bar to get a bottle of water. And they get a receipt for a deposit. 1966, you get like a glass bottle or something and you bring it back. You put a deposit on it. You bring it back. They reuse it.
Okay.
10 cents, 20 cents, which, 1966.
That was real money.
Was real money. It's not like millions of dollars, but it's real money.
It's money.
It's worth the return.
Right.
The bartender said that Miguel appeared to be in a hurry because he was frequently checking his watch. Mm-hmm. Some accounts I've read said that the bartender said that he looked nervous. I think it's just, semantics at that point.
Somebody's retelling it to make it more mysterious and inviting.
I think
Got
so,
it. Okay.
yeah.
As these things bounce around and the tale is retold, things get embellished a little bit too.
So that's the last time either of them were seen alive.
Well, that's a quick story. Oh, wait. Okay. So there's got to be more here.
There's more here. So a boy flying a kite found their bodies 3 days later on Vintem Hill in Rio de Janeiro. Mm-hmm. Both men were dressed in suits and wearing waterproof coats, which wasn't really out of the ordinary because it had apparently, according to most reasonable accounts, it had been pouring rain recently.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense.
So it makes sense. Again, there are definitely accounts that say it was weird because it was sunny. But I suspect that it probably was raining.
Well, if it's Rio de Janeiro, the weather is, it's a subtropical area. So the weather goes back and forth. It's known for storms. It's not on the coast, too.
There's a lot of areas like when I was in South America, they had the rainy season, and the rainy season is usually pretty nice, but then for about a half hour to an hour out of every day, it just dumps, and then it clears up and it's nice again. And so that's probably what's the case for down there.
Yeah. So the rain jackets weren't really out of the ordinary. However, the lead eye masks, which were like sunglasses almost, but made out of lead with no holes poked in them, that was a little out of the ordinary.
That's a little different. And by the way, I've seen pictures of them, and they appear to be handmade. Apparently, they made them themselves.
They look vaguely handmade. I don't know.
They were. I've read accounts that said they made them themselves.
Okay.
And just for everybody to picture what these look like, because when I first saw this, it was really weird because the first article or two I read didn't show the photo.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I saw the photo that I understood what they meant by lead eye masks.
They look vaguely like goggles, like scientific goggles,
Well, they
or
look
like
the
big
ones.
Ray-Bans.
Have you ever been to the eye doctor and they dilate your
Yeah.
eyes and they give you those,
They give you those
plastic little
that just
glass
wrap
things
around your face?
Yeah.
That's exactly what
You're
they look
absolutely
like.
Yeah, or they look like safety glasses,
Yeah,
plastic
yeah.
safety,
Yeah.
kind of like that,
Yeah, but they're made out of lead,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no eye holes poked in them. They said that it's the sort of thing that someone would wear to protect their eyes from radiation, which was
or from
common at the time when people were
Yeah.
working with radiation. It was common at the time to wear that. They found the empty water bottle with these men. They had 2 towels with them, which I don't really understand.
no,
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
With you. Well, so the thing is about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? It does say to always bring a towel, but Hitchhiker's Guide wasn't written for more than 10 years.
obviously
really?
he was referencing this historical.
It must have. You're right. Yeah.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, but in at least one account that I read, they had a plastic bag with them and they had soaked the towels in water.
I didn't read that.
I
anywhere.
didn't see that.
Oh, really? You didn't see that?
No.
So in one account that I read, they had a plastic bag and they had 2 towels in there, which they had wet and already moistened, and that accounts for the need for the water. But I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But
Is this your theory?
it's
plays into your
it's a possible theory.
Okay.
About,
All right. So
about
we'll
what they
revisit
were-
that.
Yeah.
Great. They also found a notebook, which just confused everything further. It was written in Portuguese. And the translation read 1630, be at agreed place. 1830, swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for mask signal.
Wait for mask signal.
And that was it. Just those 2 little lines. In the book.
Protect metal.
Well, that's cryptic.
Yes. And okay, and to add, to it, the money that these men supposedly had wasn't found on them. Whether or not the kid who found them took the money, whether or not somebody else took the money, whether they just didn't have the money to begin with.
Maybe they spent it all.
Maybe they did.
I mean, water in Brazil is very expensive, so they probably took the whole kitty right there.
That's the story. So we can get into theories now if you guys want.
Well, I wanted to point out is that I know that the kid that found him, of course, turned around and called the authorities. And everybody needs to remember, this is 1966. He doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
So he had to run to the town.
And he
make
probably
a
didn't
phone
run. He
call.
probably walked.
He probably walked.
He probably
and then he
did.
had to make the phone call. And correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the conditions and where it was at and the time of day, the police didn't go there till the next day.
Yeah.
It wasn't as
Yeah.
if they were in a hurry to get him. And
Well,
these
the guys were already dead.
Yeah.
Well, and these guys had been missing for 3 days.
3 days.
So they'd been gone for 3 days. Now, granted, the boy didn't know who
Right.
they were.
Right.
But it's kind of odd that it took so long to me.
Yeah.
You would think, well, we've got to go get these people that are lost up there.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
weird.
apparently it was fairly rugged terrain, and there were no roads leading up to where their bodies were.
They did.
Yeah.
All of the pictures of the crime scene, they had to carry the bodies out
Oh,
in these makeshift
okay.
tub things. I don't know what time he found them. I didn't find a record of that. If it were later in the evening and it was getting dark out, I would expect that, it was muddy terrain. It had been raining.
Okay,
wouldn't-
then that makes more sense. It was strange to me that nobody rushed up there to
Sure.
take care of it. So, okay.
There are a couple theories, some mundane, some
Fantastical.
fantastical is exactly the word I was looking for. One of the theories is that the lead masks suggest that the men were expecting radioactivity, which is fair.
Yeah.
But there was no radioactivity found on the hill where they were found. Which kind of brings up the idea that these men may not have been found at the referenced agreed upon place. That might not have been where the agreed upon place was. So that they may have gone and done their business elsewhere that these little notes referenced. And to be fair, even there's no proof that says that this note referenced, that day. They could have gone and done all of their business that had their little notes and then, run into a murderer who killed them and was like, whoa, there's lead masks.
Takes the cash, yeah.
Takes the cash, puts the lead masks on and just walks away. So for all we know, this is, there's still a mystery here, but it doesn't actually pertain to their deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So that's...
Do we know the cause of death?
No.
And the bodies were somewhat deteriorated.
So what
right?
happened was they were found 3 days after they had disappeared, or that they had been seen last. But the coroner in Rio de Janeiro at the time was really busy. So when they were performing the autopsies, he left all their organs out at room temperature for just like hours at a time.
Oh.
So by the time he got around to dissecting them to see if there was anything in them, they were just spoiled. There was no telling what was going on.
Okay. So you couldn't run any tests.
So they couldn't run any kind of tests.
Okay. And there was no outward signs of it wasn't as if, they had
there was
stab wounds
there
or
wasn't like a
something.
bullet hole in their head or anything.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah.
So robbery seems unlikely.
So robbery does seem unlikely. I mean, you don't really poison people, but they did reference capsules, right?
Yeah, they did.
They did.
They didn't find any capsules.
So they must have swallowed them.
Taken them.
Yeah.
But, the evidence of those would, of course, be in internal organs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which are spoiled.
Which were spoiled. Because the coroner was really busy that day.
Or it was an alien.
He might have been. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. He's part of the conspiracy.
Yeah. And then, there are claims of UFO activity stuff. And there are a couple around this because these two men were UFO enthusiasts. And the place that they were found was known as a UFO hotspot, quote unquote.
Okay.
There were reports of UFOs being sighted the day before they were found, or I guess the night before they were found.
Oh, okay.
In the area, and and none of the articles I could find made clear if these were reports that came before or after their, discovery. And we've talked about this before, right? That's a big problem. If they come after,
they're not real reliable.
They're not really. But this area was known as a UFO hotspot. UFOs were reported pretty frequently in this area.
Okay.
So there was a theory that since they were UFO enthusiasts, they went to this area to perform a suicide pact that coincidentally was at the same time that a mothership would come. And so if they killed themselves on Earth, the mothership would beam up their souls and they would be able to travel with the aliens.
Kind of like the whole Heaven's Gate
I was going to say, that's very familiar.
It's exactly like that. Actually, they referenced it. The joke was, well, maybe these guys were wearing Nikes, but 1966, so they in Brazil, so they probably weren't. But
why? But in that case, if they're just going to kill themselves, then why the lead sunglasses?
Maybe they were misinformed. Maybe they thought they had to wear those.
Oh, maybe
could be like the old thing of when was it that they used to put pennies on your eyes? To pay the 2 pence for the boatman.
So they figured that the aliens were short on lead, and so they just thought they'd put some lead on it. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I don't know.
It could have been that, but it's just, it's one of those weird things where there's a lot of cultural oddities around when someone dies. Eyes always come up. You always place something on their eyes, and I don't know why that is. You just see it reoccurring in a lot of things, and so it strikes a chord here. Does it make sense? No, but it strikes a chord that I can't help it. I can't ignore.
And the towel thing is weird to me. They say, well, it indicates they were expecting moisture. And it's like, well, yeah, it was raining, but you wear a raincoat. You don't bring a towel like you've gone swimming.
Right.
Towels for when you get home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The towel thing is still super weird to me. I don't know.
So my thinking about the whole towel thing is that if they were up there, supposing they were expecting to make contact with a UFO up there, they don't know exactly what to expect, but they're thinking probably it's entirely possible we can expect like intense light, intense heat. And so that was why they made themselves some lead spectacles, because they thought, well, we can go buy sunglasses, but no sunglasses we buy are probably going to be adequate.
Sure.
So it's kind of a worst case scenario kind of thing. So they had the towels along. And I read one account of this. The towels were in a plastic bag, and they had been pre-soaked. They were wet. So my thinking is that their plan was that when the UFO showed up, that they would put on the lead shades to protect their vision from intense light, should there be intense light, And should there be very intense heat, they could pick up the towels and hold the towels in front of them. And the towels, the moisture in the towels would actually absorb some of that heat and give it off in steam and protect them from the intense heat. And I think it was kind of a worst case scenario kind of thing for them to have wet towels handy just in case they were experiencing intense heat.
That's really planned out.
It is. I was also going to say that's like one of the smartest theories I've heard out of you.
Okay. Hey, up yours.
So I think
that explains the water bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, they probably wanted to drink a little bit of that too if they're going to go hiking, but
and to take the capsules.
Yes.
Right?
And my other thing is that why they died is that if they were expecting possible radiation, they might have thought it would be a good precaution to take iodine pills to protect their thyroid. If they had pills that were a much stronger mix of iodine than what they believed they were taking, then iodine poisoning actually can kill you. And it's also possible that they could have gotten tainted drugs also, and they were just poisoned by the tainted drugs.
Well, does iodine poisoning kill you relatively quickly?
No, not really.
It's a slow process.
Well, it's not weeks or anything like that. But my understanding is iodine poisoning it's not an instant sort of thing.
But it's kind of painful. It takes a bit.
It's painful. You're sick. You're nauseous. You throw up. You get diarrhea and stuff like that. So that's a mark against that theory. But
what I was going to say is one of the things that is reported about these guys when they were found is that the grass around them was undisturbed. So that means if they were sick and they were flailing and they were moving around, you would thought that they would have beat the grass down. And even after a couple of days, that grass isn't going to have stood itself back up. Grass is really resilient, but
not likely. No, and I don't know how thoroughly they examined the bodies, and of course, my research into iodine poisoning indicates that it affects different people differently.
Okay.
Right.
So not everybody's going to have diarrhea, for example, but and it's going to take a few days probably at least to die. So that would lend credence if they were iodine capsules, if they were taking it for that reason, that they were just tainted. And so they just were poisoned by bad drugs, and which happens even today. I mean, modern in 66, obviously controls, especially in the third world.
Brazil.
In Brazil. So it's entirely possible that they just got a bad batch.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
So the other one of the other fantasy theories out there is that these guys were time travelers.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And so this is the thing, right? Is that like my reaction too is like, what? I don't actually understand how that explains anything except for I found one reference to one scientist who was also supposedly a time traveler that wore a raincoat and lead eye protection. But I couldn't find any reference to this this apparent scientist time traveler anywhere else. It was just in this one thing.
I was going to say, it's one of those things on the internet that you find the blurb, but you never find anything to support it.
And in this article particularly that I was reading, he was making all these pop culture references, and it was kind of like, well, maybe I've just missed out on this, on this particular reference. Maybe somebody out there listening can tell me what, that reference was to, but I don't know. We don't know at all.
No,
and I couldn't,
never heard of that.
Googling it didn't give me any insight.
Yeah. So anyway, how does this theory work? So these guys went off, they traveled in time a bit, they popped back into our time on the top of this hill, and the experience killed them? Is that
I don't know.
The
They thought that they had glimpsed something into the wrinkle of time, and they took these capsules to help them transition or something, and it failed catastrophically and they died.
Yeah.
So again, this is one of those little blurb theories that I thought I'd throw in there because it's vaguely interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really kind of fun to read the stuff that people come up with, even though it's obviously some of it outlandish.
Yeah.
Time travel.
So that's all of the UFO theories. There's one other kind of blurb that I kind of talked about already that was that we don't know that these notes are actually pertaining to the day that they died or to their death at all. The thing that none of these theories really explain is there's a little blurb in their note that says protect the metals.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah. So
What does protect metals mean?
I don't know. We don't know. One of the other theories, which I think is probably the most reasonable, since they were UFO enthusiasts, they were kind of into the electronics of the time. And, they said, we're going to go buy a car, which would be the reason that they might have a lot of money. So the relatives weren't questioning, why did you leave with all this money? Why did you take your life savings? But that they were going to do a deal that had to do with radioactive metals or materials of some kind. And that perhaps they did take iodine or something of that nature to protect them from the radioactivity of the metal. And they went and they did the deal and got these metal and then, died for whatever reason from the iodine. And who knows where they got these capsules. It may have been the person who was doing the deal anyways. It may have been it could have been a way to make a quick buck, right? Oh, I have these radioactive materials you guys are looking for. Here, I'm going to send you some pills to help protect you from the radioactivity. And then, take the money and just follow them for a day while they die slowly. And then take your radioactive material back. I don't know.
Supposed radioactive material.
The theoretically radioactive material.
Yeah,
but so that's really one of my big problems. They were waiting for someone to tell them to put the mask on.
Some kind of signal.
Some kind of signal to put the mask on. And they talk about protecting the metal. Kind of in the feeling that I get of it is protected at all costs. Right? Those are two things that none of these theories really speak to. The fact that their notes imply that there are other people involved.
Yeah.
And that there's something they're trying to, get, I guess, the metals they're trying to protect.
Well, this whole thing, from the outside, as we've said, there's these elements that seem so far-fetched. But if these guys are TV repairmen, and they're into electronics, probably the big technology that everybody could get was like a ham radio or something at that time.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they weren't doing what a lot of people do these days, the equivalent of getting on a forum or getting on a chat channel and chatting, and somebody realizing that, wait, these guys are kind of naive, and I could make a couple of bucks on them.
Yeah.
And whether it was they intended to, give them these pills and they were just knockout pills and they just intended to knock them out and take their stuff, or they intended to kill them. I don't know which way. They didn't and it went bad, or they did. Who knows? But it seems like that's the most plausible thing that I can get out of this, is that somebody was stringing them along, and then when they died, just to add to it, to make it seem weirder, to throw the police off the case, they took those silly little glasses and put them on their faces when they left them dead. But that's the only thing that I can ever see that makes any coherent sense in this whole thing. That's the problem. None of it is coherent.
Yeah. It's all kind of just slapped on there.
Yeah.
It's 2 guys found dead for no real reason. Okay, that's a mystery. Oh, also they had towels. Okay. Also, they were wearing these weird lead masks.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, they had a note in their pocket that was totally inexplainable. Oh, okay. Oh, and also on top of that, my problem with the suicide pact, right, is that they bought a refundable bottle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they seem to intend to return.
Yes.
It's not like they went out there with the intention of never coming back. I mean, maybe they did, but surely there's an option to just say, oh no, we just want a glass of water, or no, we'll take we won't, pay the deposit. We're just going to take
why are you going to worry about the deposit?
Well,
or the receipt for a water bottle if you're not coming back.
But yeah, at the same time, though, I mean, haven't you gotten a receipt and stuffed it in your pocket, and then at the end of the day, you take it out and then you throw it away?
The impression that I had was that it was you had to deliberately say, that they would say, okay, do you want the receipt to return this, or are you just going to take it with you? That was my impression. And, that could be totally wrong. It could be that they just printed out a receipt and they just did it.
Yeah.
That could totally be the case. But, in my little world, these 2 men who are super excited about getting something, traipse out into the wild with they're like, we're going to come back tomorrow and it's going to be perfect. And we're going to return this for 10 cents, which is going to be enough for a bus back to our hometown.
Well, and the bus that they had to ride the bus like 3 hours to get there from their
3
hometown.
hours.
Yeah, that's a heck of a commute.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It was 160 miles from their hometown.
Yeah.
So, and it's true, they were UFO enthusiasts. Maybe they were going out to see if they could find a UFO or something. But obviously something went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
It might be that they were just swindled, like Steve was saying. They were just, somebody gave them some knockout pills so he could take their money and flee. And then, he gave them a little bit too much. And they just sort of died.
Yep.
It's entirely possible.
Yep. That's a big mystery.
All right.
It's just,
That's a weird one.
Yep.
Well,
That has got, I have to say, so far in the shows that we've done, that probably has the most clues left behind so far that make no sense.
It's just like a menagerie of weirdness.
Yes, I am giving this one the Menagerie Award.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. But you shouldn't overlook the possibility that maybe these guys decided to just check out and they decided to commit suicide. And they thought, well, what can we do to make sure our names live on? And so they just decided to put together a whole pastiche of weird stuff. Unexplainable stuff. Well, let's write a cryptic little note. Let's hammer up some lead sunglasses.
That's not the behavior of people who are intending to do themselves in.
True that.
That doesn't hold true to any case that I've ever heard of as somebody who's plotting their own demise. I've never heard of anybody saying, well, I'm going to make this as weird as possible.
Yeah, and we talked about recently that guy who disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
Valentich, the pilot?
Yeah.
Yes.
And, he was a UFO enthusiast and he, we talked about the theory that maybe he faked his own death and there was, he wanted to go out with a bang, and that's fine. That even seems more reasonable to me as like I'm going to kill myself, but also fake a UFO thing than this, travel 160 miles when you're like pretty broke anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go, make lead masks, which couldn't have been easy, take capsules.
And I want to speak to the lead masks.
Yeah.
I've read a number of these, and I started thinking, well, are they lead masks? Are they really lead masks? And that's when I was trying to figure out what they look like. And then I started doing a bunch of looking around, and I've seen accounts that say they weren't actually lead, but they were tin.
Oh, really?
Which would be much easier to get a hold of than lead.
Yeah, and you could cut them out with a pair of tin snips.
Well, no, these things look like they were hammered out. I mean, it looks like somebody hammered them out, but I don't know that they were really lead.
Yeah.
I think that they might have been. Everybody said, well, those look like the glasses you put on for. I don't know if they were really lead.
They might, I can't really tell. They do look hand hammered, I think. But if you go to like your local fishing store, you can buy those weights that come in like they're cylindrical, almost like a rope.
That's very true. You can buy fishing weights.
Yeah, you can buy those ones that are in a long sort of cord of lead, and you could basically pound that with a sledge till it was flat, and then just cut out your sunglasses from it. So true. It's entirely feasible to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's just I've seen accounts that go both ways. So
that's fair.
It's another was like, well, okay, well, if they're going to protect from radiation in their tin, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Although if they're going to protect from super intense light and not radiation, tin works just fine.
Yes, it does.
Unless there's a lot of heat, and then maybe they melt.
Yeah. Again, we're going down the same rabbit hole.
Yeah. And no, I don't have any more theories.
No.
Anything else you want to talk about with this?
No.
So if you have any theories or, have anything to correct us or any more insight into this, you can email us at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website. We've got links. Probably we'll post a couple pictures of the lead masks. And that's thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Ta-ta.